we're back with day 3 of factoring. So day 1, we talked about greatest common factor and difference of two squares. Yesterday, we talked about trinomials where a equals 1. Today, we're going to talk about grouping. That's when we're going to have 4 terms. So what I'd like to do is consider our first problem and go through several steps. So we have f of x is equal to 2x to the fourth minus 4x cubed plus 3x minus 6. The first thing you should always do is check for a GCF. This one doesn't have one. Second step, we are going to group the first 2 terms and the second 2 terms. Notice that I have the plus sign in the middle with the second group. Step 2, take a GCF out of each group. So I'm just going to look at the 2x to the fourth power minus 4x cubed and take out a GCF from it. Then I'm going to look at 3x minus 6 separately and take out a GCF from that. So 2x to the fourth minus 4x cubed has a 2x cubed in common. So I'm going to take that out. When I do that, I'm going to have x minus 2 left over. Now I have to regroup and do it again. 3x and negative 6 have a 3 in common. Take it out, then you have an x minus 2 in common. You might notice that you have 2 x minus 2's. That should happen every single time. In fact, if it doesn't, you need to pause and regroup because you did something wrong. Later, it'll tell us this method doesn't work, but you don't have to worry about that quite yet. Now we need to take this information to rewrite our answer. That binomial that repeats that I have written in blue, write that one time. So that's going to be part of our answer. That'll give us the x minus 2. Then we'll take the GCFs in green and combine them to make another polynomial. So we'll have 2x cubed plus 3. Notice how it's written in red. That's my cue that you're done. Okay? Don't forget when you get down to these problems, though, that you should always be checking for dots. Anytime you have binomials, check for dots. Now you know what's coming next. We're going to do this a couple more times. Okay? So I'm going to copy and paste these steps, and I am going to shift them down. So these steps are going to be super, super important. I'm going to be highlighting them several times today. Okay, so our next example, we have 3x to the fourth, 18x cubed, minus 6x squared, minus 36x. That has a GCF. It's 3x. So now I am going to write my GCF over to the side in yellow to remember it's there and write the resulting polynomial. Now from here, we can group. So group the first 2 and the second 2. Now the first group has x squared in common, so I've got x plus 6. The second group, I have to take the negative out. So when I do that, the signs change. Notice again, in blue, it's the same. That tells me I'm on the right track. So I have x plus 6, then x squared minus 2. Oop, I almost forgot the GCF. What was I thinking? And I even told you guys that people forget to do that. Since it's in red, that's my final answer. Now, if you saw x squared minus 2 and thought that was dots, I love your brain so much. However, 2 is not a perfect square, so you're actually done. Let's try this again. This would be a good time that if you feel like you have it, I would definitely pause the video and try it on your own. If not, follow along. Always check for a GCF first. This time I have a 5x in common. So now I have an x cubed minus 3x squared minus x plus 3. Group the first 2 and the second 2, making sure that minus stays with the x. The first group has an x squared in common, and the second group has a negative 1 in common, because I can't take anything out. If they don't even lead with a negative, you could always take out a positive 1 as well. So now I have 5x, and then x minus 3, then x squared minus 1. Notice I didn't write it in red, because this time you actually have a dots. So we have to square root x squared, which gives me x, and square root 1, which gives me 1. So now let's drop everything down. I've got 5x, x minus 3, x plus 1, x minus 1. Now you may be at a place of, okay, I get everything when they're separated, but when they're all together, that's when I get really confused. So here's a think it through chart for you. You always, always, always want to start with looking for a greatest common factor. Then, if you have 2 terms, check for dots. If you have 3 terms, do X method, but when you're done, check for dots. Then, if you have 4 terms, you're going to group. Again, once you're done, check for dots. Okay? Now you're at a place where you just got to practice this. You can do it. I know you can.